Hello and welcome. This is Japan, and we have a video here today about the WrestleMania feuds and ranking them based off of just everything. Do we like the feud? Do we like the match? Do we like the culmination? And on the bottom, we'll also have if the feud is not over, because I do believe there is a few of them here that I don't think we're going to see the end of. First off, we got AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. I don't know why I was going to say Randy Orton. Honestly, I feel like this feud in general is probably not over. We saw kind of Karrion Cross talk about it. I think Cross and Logan Paul are going to go first, and then maybe AJ Styles. I'm going to put it into the back burner. I honestly don't think there's going to be another one of these matches, but there could very possibly be. So I will put it there. When you kind of just skip that over and just put the feud in general, I didn't really care for this feud. I don't think the feud was anything too crazy. I feel like Cross and Logan Paul have a better feud than AJ Styles and Logan Paul. So I'd put it in D. Didn't really care for it. Next up is Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair. I think with this feud, it is over. I don't think we'll get anything else from this. The whole point was Tiffany finally getting over on Charlotte because they had just that cattiness between each other and they really didn't like each other in and outside the ring. So I feel like this is definitely one of those feuds that it was a WrestleMania feud. It had a little bit of the buildup from when she won the Royal Rumble to there. I think it was pretty solid. I'd probably put it in B. I think mainly the whole feud just kind of felt slow at first because I think Tiffany was supposed to be the heel and Charlotte Flair was going to be the face, and it didn't work out, so they had to flip it, and I think that really slowed down that feud from heating up, but I think overall it was still pretty good. Next up, we had the War Raiders versus the New Day. I honestly think maybe that the War Raiders might get a rematch. But other than that, I don't really feel like this feud is going to be anything too crazy. I also don't feel like we had much of a build up, at least between these two. We had more of like the story of New Day turning heel was something side, and the War Raiders were just a good tag team. So I don't really feel like there was a feud between the two. Next up, we had John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. I feel like this is a feud that isn't over, but I think this version of it is. I think the heel Cena and Cody Rhodes trying to defend him off of thinking that he had the deck stack against him. I think Cody's going to be gone for a little bit, rebuild, and come back at John Cena. But I don't think it's going to be towards the end of the year that he might have that next shot. I could see him possibly getting a shot by like winning maybe like King of the Ring or something and getting that opportunity. But I hope they really don't do. Well, I mean, I guess it'd be too gone to do like Royal Rumble or any of that because John Cena will be gone. So I think this feud was S tier. I do think the match was a letdown at the very end of all of it, but I think overall that buildup was just so good between the heel turn and everything else. Next up, we had Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre. This is actually a feud that I could see them continuing if they really wanted to. I don't think I would. I think it did have a good purpose, and I think it did have a good ending. I think they should just leave it. I think out of most of the feuds, it did last a very long time and had a lot of different things, even though they were feuding with other people in between. But I think there was still enough storylines to be like, this happened all over the place. So I'll put it up at A. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty decent to put it on the card. Next up, we had El Grande Americano versus Ray Phoenix. This one I would have to put automatically into D just because of really had nothing to do with each other because it was supposed to be Rey Mysterio. I guess I'll put it in the feud's not over. I do think they get a rematch, and they might redo this if Rey is still shelved. But I think Rey Mysterio is going to be the one that takes off his mask and makes Chad Gable pay for all of that. But we'll see. I'm gonna say not over though right now. If I had to rate it just on that, I'd have to put D just because they had absolutely no build up to it because it wasn't a match that was supposed to happen. Next up is Gunther versus Jey Uso. This was such a slow start because like Jey had like a hot start off of winning the Royal Rumble, but they didn't really get the connection of like really caring about the two. It really wasn't until Gunther took over that stepped over that line and took out Jimmy so badly. It really had that switch for Jey and actually made him look like he was gonna just had to do what he had to do. I do think like they should have played up that brutality a little bit more in their match. I think the match itself was okay. I thought the feud itself was a little bit better. I'd probably put the feud and the build up in like maybe A S tier. I think the match was like a B. I think that's what I put in the rating. So I probably just put this in A and split the difference. Next up, we had the Fatal Four Way. There was a lot of buildup in between each different thing. Obviously, Dom and Finn being part of the same faction, they had that type of thing. Penta being the newcomer had kind of feuded with all of them. Braun Breaker defending everybody was his own thing. I thought the match itself was really good. I thought it was a good decision to put the belt on Dom, and I think this is a feud that technically is not over, but I think for our as all four men are in there, I think that part is over. I think I put it in a solid B. I do believe it's not over. I do believe we're probably going to get Dom versus Finn. We might even get Breaker versus Penta, but I think Breaker's on a whole different path if you've watched Raw. So that could be a completely different thing. I think he's going to be a completely different thing and not be going after titles for a while now because he has bigger storylines to be in. Jade versus Naomi, it should not be over. I don't think it should be over at all. This should definitely be a Backlash match. It's not just because I'm going to Backlash, but I want to see that. But I think that's what it kind of had to do. I really felt like it should have been Naomi winning the first one, so Jade then would have a purpose to go for another one. But I think Naomi still goes after her and stuff. The feud that they currently are, I would put up in the A. I'm really enjoying it, and so we could kind of see more. But I definitely think it's one of those feuds that shouldn't go much more than one more match. Next up, we had the tag team championships match. This one's a lot of stuff happened from this one. So Bailey got taken out, so they added Becky Lynch. Good call, I think. Other than I wish Bailey would have just got her opportunity because she earned being in that Mania spot because she had such a great, crazy year. That's a whole different video, a whole different idea to talk about. But back to this match, I don't think they had any build-up because it was a last-minute thing. There was really no feud, and I don't think there's going to be any feud from it because Liv and Raquel's already won back the tag team titles, and I think Lyra is going to have her hands filled with Becky Lynch for a while now. So this is definitely D. Next up, we had the triple threat: Rhea versus Io versus Bianca. I do believe this is a feud that will be probably very recently brought back up. I just don't know exactly who it's going to be. I do believe it's probably going to be Io and Bianca turning heel, but that could also just be nothing. They could, depending on how the draft is, they could have Rhea going after the title from Tiffany. There's so much stuff. I think this feud itself was really good. It really cemented Io in her second reign really well because that first reign just always was missing something, and what it was missing was that like ability to just stand up there and show that she is that bitch, and like she is, and she fucking did great. I'm gonna put it up in S tier. Next up is the triple threat match with Rollins, Roman, and CM Punk. If you've already watched Raw, we already know this isn't over, and I don't think it's over anytime soon. I think we're gonna get a Seth and Braun Breaker match against Roman and CM Punk very soon. I have to put this in S tier. That whole build up was really great too with Paul Heyman and all that. Yeah, it's going to be a good feud going into summer, I think. Next up is LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu. I don't think this feud continues. I do think maybe LA Knight will get a rematch, but I think Jacob's feud is going to be with a little bit of Braun Strowman and then into Solo at some point. I think that's just how it goes. I think it just makes the most sense. I think their build-up in general was pretty solid. I put it in B. It wasn't too crazy. But yeah, those are the WrestleMania feuds and how I would rate them. I have WrestleMania videos on each one of these feuds on my channel if you wanted to check them out. And I'd kind of do a little bit of a smaller deep dive into what the build-up was before WrestleMania week. And if you like wrestling content in general, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.